So I did actually narrate this at the time, but the wind noise in the mic was just terrible. So the plan was to take that piece of angle iron and weld it in position, where screwing it through the other week had failed miserably. So I needed to clean off the paint from the surfaces to be welded first, and then have a go, my first ever go at welding. I have no idea what I was saying here. Probably something like, "Oh, look at my fancy new Chinese welder. I'm a big boy now with big boys' toys. Look, he's got a little bit of wire coming out the end. Ooh, exciting." I don't know. Make up your own narration for that bit, because I honestly can't remember what I was saying.
I realised about halfway through that I've forgotten to put my gloves on as the hot spark started to hit. So there's probably little microscopic burns there now that I can't really feel, but I'll notice them itching in the week and think I've been attacked by mosquitoes. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is clean up the surface on this that I'm going to be welding.
So this is my cheap Chinese welder. I think it cost about £85. It's 3-in-1, MIG, TIG and stick welder. I didn't hold out much hope for it really, and the results weren't amazing to be fair, but I have never welded before, so considering that I got two pieces of metal to stick together at all, I think it worked pretty well. So that's me putting the earth, or maybe you call it a negative return, I'm not sure, onto the little electrode there. So it's held in place by a magnet, and there's a little copper bit going onto the bare angle iron, which I took the paint off so that it would touch. And then when you start feeding the current through the MIG tip, through the wire that comes out the end, that's your circuit complete there. So it kind of arcs down, melts the metal, and creates the join. This was me struggling to figure out how to fit this replacement auto darkening lens into the welding helmet. I really did struggle with this today actually, and in the end I settled for holding that flipping darkening thing up in front of my face, which wasn't ideal, and I really need to get that sorted so I don't damage my eyes with UV. At least it wouldn't come straight into them, you know, holding that up, but I wasn't getting much protection from sparks, and you've got reflected UV that can come in the sides as well, so not recommended.
Just do it so I can just work away and use this.
Yeah, I mean the lens that was in did seem to be working when I pressed the test mode, but actually, and it did darken, but I couldn't see through it. When it wasn't welding, it was absolutely impossible to use, which is why I went to holding the replacement one up in my face.
So I've not done this before. I've always wanted to have a go. Cover me boots up so I don't get any bits down there. Don't want hot bits of stuff.
Yeah, it was really difficult because I just could not see what I was doing. All I could see when it went dark was the bright light from the actual arc. And then when I stopped doing the arc, or before when I was offering up the nozzle, I couldn't see where I was. I kept wandering off target and just putting weld onto the actual metal, which meant that I had to get the grinder out and take a lot of it off. You know, I think I ended up grinding off more than I was actually needing to do the weld at the end of it. You know, ground off more than I left behind by the end of the job, which I don't believe is the way to go on with it. Yeah, so it wasn't pretty. Using me trying to chip off the slag and clean it all up a bit. It wasn't pretty, but I do feel like I did improve and get a better understanding of how to control the variables as the day went on and I did more welding tasks. You know, there are so many variables, like the length of the wire that you have coming out, the distance from the join you're trying to make, the amount of current you're putting through, the speed at which the wire is set to come out, the angle you hold the wire at, the way you pull the wire back, the way you waggle it. There are so many variables. The thickness of the wire, the thickness of the metal you're working with, it is a real skill. And hats off to people who can weld well, because it's going to be a steep learning curve. Having said that, I have enjoyed myself. You know, I've got a real sense of achievement, even though it's not pretty. The grinder gets rid of a lot of the evidence, and then a bit of paint on top will help as well. So here's a look at my first ever weld. After I've tried to clean it up a bit with the grinder, like I say, it's not pretty, but it got the job done. It's pretty solid, certainly more solid than it was with the attempt to screw through it. Try not to look at the big holes like that. I've not done great welding job, but you know, it's joined together, and so I'll take that. So next I wanted to put some galvanized conduit, you can see it there at the bottom left, down as a base to build the wooden cabinet on. That'll hold it off the wet deck, potentially wet deck, so the wood won't go rotten. But that will still allow water to drain out if it gets behind, as it will. So clean off the paint again so that you got a good contact there for the electricity to go through. And also I had to clean off the galvanized, the zinc coating, because it's galvanized trunking. So clean off the zinc coating with the grinder so that again you can get a good contact and a bit of a better weld. There was actually one section of this, let's say that was a 12-inch piece I was welding onto the deck there. There was about 2 inches of it that I was actually quite happy with. It looked like an actual weld instead of a collection of bubbles. There, just come onto screen. Not a bad little bit, that. If I can get the rest of it to look like that, I'll be happy on future jobs. So again, just giving it a bit of a clean up with the grinder. You can see the bare patches on top there where I took the zinc coating off that bar. give a good contact. Plan, you know, I knew I was going to paint it all, so it didn't matter too much. I've left it on where I can. And then I need to prep a bit at each side as well to support the board down the side. So prepping the area there to try and weld that pipe on, which is where the 240 electrics are going to drop down, separate from the 12 volt from the console. That's the plan. I just wanted to give it a bit more chance of keeping the water out. It turned out I could only weld half of it. I couldn't reach the rest of it, and it was kind of rocking around on the weld. It was not good. So what I did was the pipe that's going over it is actually quite a bit bigger, as you can see, than the hole. So I used for the rest of the circle, I used CT1 on the outside and then bunged a load of CT1 on the inside between the two pipe sizes. And then that small rubber bit of hose to the left there that you can see, I pushed that down into the CT1. So hopefully that should have the required effect. So I bared a little bit of the steel for the negative contact to go against there in the middle of the screen, middle left. Yeah, wasn't great, this weld. It's not helped. Yes, I'm complete rank amateur and new to all this and not trained at all in welding, which obviously does not help in the slightest. But also it's kind of awkward space to get into because I've got that angle iron there now. If I'd thought about it, I should have done this first. But there you go, I'm just feeling my way. Grind that up a bit. Try not to cut that rope off the hatch. And then move on to the next bit. So this is the 3 bits of conduit welded down. I got these from work as offcuts. I asked the manager of the plant, he said, yeah, take them. We have to pay people to take them away. Okay, so the next job was to weld clamps onto the forward bulkhead on this side of the gas locker in order to support that bit of steel galvanised conduit there, which is what I'm going to clamp the tunnel light onto. Now this is just me showing you the console bits that I put on once I've had a bit of paint on. Still not going to win any beauty prizes, but it's looking a lot better. Okay, back to the gas locker. I've welded those 2 pieces on now. So I just put this freeze frame up to show you the 2 clamp bases. I actually was getting a bit cocky and I forgot to adjust the current for these much thinner pieces of steel. It just completely ate away half of one of them and I had to then fill it with weld. But you know, every day's a school day. So I'll just tack this onto the end. I had 2 floorboards that were rotten. I kept falling through them when I sat on the chair. So I cut new pieces of board from which my neighbour gave me, 22mm ply, sanded and painted them up. Over the last couple of days, I've been putting more coats on, sanding them and whatnot. It was absolutely rotten. You can see the flagstones there, which I used as ballast. They're 3 deep and 3 wide, so there's 9 in each of those spaces between the floor bearers. Yeah, it's looking a lot better now, to be honest, with the new bits of board in. I've actually been quite pleased when I've taken up the floorboards so far. It's all pretty bone dry underneath. See the black bitumen there underneath each of the flags there, which helps protect the floor as well. So here's the larger of the 2 boards that's put in place. It's a slightly different shade of floor paint, but hey ho, it didn't cost me anything, so that's good. And that's the smaller piece, which is yet to go in. It's just having another coat and being sanded and whatnot. Okay, thank you for watching. Yep, so please like if you liked it, subscribe, share, comment. I love to get comments from people who are watching the videos, and I know you are out there. It'd be interesting to know your thoughts. Okay, bye bye.